Hi, welcome to the FlagRunners. You know, we've recorded over 100 videos now, and today I'd like to make a special video. It's about the original FlagRunner, my brother. He not only devotes his life to helping people fly flags, but he also devotes his life to a very elite level of running. It's a different thing to be able to have a full-time job, work 40 plus, and in his case sometimes 80 hours a week, and run over 100 miles a week. And it's really an incredible thing to experience and be a part of. I feel grateful to be a part of it, and I got to experience what it really means to show up to the start line at the 2011 Chicago Marathon. And instead of sharing the experience in my words, I thought maybe I could share the experience with you in his words. So this is what he wrote after running the 2011 Chicago Marathon. I run for the Fleet Feet Nike Elite Racing Team in Chicago. I train with two other guys, Matt Bloom and Todd Potasic, who are also on the team. We've been training for the past 3 months for the marathon using Coach Leach's marathon training program he designed for the three of us. We all run different weekly mileage, but I try to keep my miles consistently between 80 and 105 miles per week. After completing training and running that volume, we estimated we were close to 2 hours 22 minute marathon shape, or 5:25 pace per mile. The plan was to run together as a group and to help each other along the way. If one of us got dropped, the other two would help to keep the group together by taking the lead. We had done all of our workouts together in almost perfect lockstep, so it made sense to race together. The morning of the race was a bit chaotic. We met at the Elite Development Tent, but had very little time to prepare as the race asked all of us to line up almost 30 minutes early. This was a surprise and allowed for very little warm-up. Coach Leach advised us to take it easy the first few miles and use that as our warm-up. When the race began, it seemed like 200 some odd runners went out in a fury, passing us by. Matt, Todd, and I did not panic and just formed a group as we had planned. We stuck to the plan, paced at of 5:25. Race day was under a yellow flag, which meant the conditions were not perfect. Race temps at the start of the race were in low 60s and forecast to climb to 70 degrees without a cloud in the sky by 10 a.m. when we expected to finish. This was quite warm compared to our training the past 6 weeks, so we were a little concerned but hopeful the low humidity in the air would help mitigate the effects from higher temperatures. Over the first 10K, it felt like we were all trying to get into a rhythm. I led most of the miles, but enjoyed the front of the pace since it was a little cooler leading, breaking the air. I was unsure if the pace was too fast for me, as I had never raced a marathon this fast, but tried to remain calm and confident I could run the pace. The pace actually got quite comfortable around mile 7 when we caught up to another Fleet Feet runner, Jim Akita. We formed a tight pack and began to head south back to downtown. I tried to avoid the lead here, as you could feel the wind in this direction. Unfortunately, nobody really wanted to lead, so I took some of the front running, though, through this stretch.
Okay, we're past the halfway mark. Went through in about 1:15. Not sure what the official time was. There he is. Here's our boy now.
Mile after mile was nearly dead on pace. Well, 2 to 3 seconds slow, but I was chalking that up to the weather and the fact that we didn't understand how fit we really were. My main focus was to be completely present. My past marathons were barely sub 2 hours and 30 minutes, so I did not want to drag those experiences into this one. I wanted to be free to run whatever pace I felt I could do. We went through the half in 1:11:30, right on pace to run 2:23 flat. At this point, I was in a groove and was trying to stay present and enjoy the run. Unfortunately, everything changed after the half. Our group broke apart, and I quickly found myself running alone just a few minutes later. I could feel the sun heating up the air, but it felt so dry I tried to ignore this fact. Todd was about 5 to 10 yards back, so I was hopeful we could still run together. I slowed down to regroup with him, but could tell he didn't want to maintain the pace, so I had to, with regret, run ahead and try to run the rest of the race alone. At this moment, I visualized managing myself well enough to make it solidly through mile 20. I was trying to break the race up into chunks so it did not seem insurmountable. I took my third Excel gel at 16. The first two were at mile 5 and 10 and were my only source of electrolyte replacement as I was taking water at every aid station. All part of Coach Leach's plan. I could feel the Excel gel helping, but it was also very hard to digest and made me a bit uneasy since my stomach was already full of liquid. I slowed a few seconds at mile 16 or mile 17, but thought it was mostly due to the gel. I recovered a bit after my stomach settled and got back into pace, but not for long. Around mile 19, in my opinion the loneliest and most drab part of the course, I began to feel the wheels come off. I wasn't sure, and then all of a sudden, I was really suffering in mile 20 and 21. My pace slowed 10 to 20 seconds a mile, and then I had to walk. I knew my PR effort was over. A few people helping out with the aid station at this point urged me to continue running, but I was stumbling left and right, barely able to walk forward. I didn't want to drop out like I did in 07. So I began to run again, after what seemed like an eternity, but was just 20 seconds. I was running again, but only crawling along a 9 to 10 minute pace. It was a few minutes later that I saw Ricky and Kyle, some friends of mine, who urged me to pick it up. They said, "Brent, you're just outside the top 50. You're doing really, really well." That actually lifted my spirit because I didn't know where I stood. I had just remembered being passed by 200 people right at the start and having caught very few since then. I ran through mile 23 in 8-minute pace, and then really started to get my rhythm back when I made the final turn onto Michigan Avenue, about 5K out. My dad and brother were there, and our family friend, Joe DeYoung. I wanted to run hard for them, so I somehow shortened my stride, which allowed me to run 5:45 pace again. I was thrilled and seemingly pretty comfortable to maintain this effort. The wind was at my back again. I could visualize the finish. My family and Joe kept cheering me on, and then I knew I could finish at this effort. I made the turn up Roosevelt Bridge, clocking a 5:43 final mile. I saw 3 men directly ahead of me. I knew I was already the top Fleet Feet finisher, but I wanted these 3 as well. On the final straight, I positioned myself to the right, then turned on the afterburners in the final 100 meters, and easily passed this small group. I finished in 2:27.45, about 10 seconds slower than my personal best. I had just run an 8-minute mile and a marathon and still came within 10 seconds of my personal best. I couldn't believe it. It was a hot day. I had gone out gutsy at 5:28 pace, fallen apart, and then was reborn and able to finish the race. It turned out I was 51st overall, the fastest Chicago finisher and the second fastest finisher from Illinois. What else can I say? But good run, even though it wasn't my time goal.